Kia ora whānau. Hey, Zeb here. And today I just wanted to chat to everybody about current legislation in New Zealand that's up for change and how we can make a public submission to have our voices heard. Now, if you aren't aware of how to do this already, please follow along. I'm just about to pop something in the comments section because I'm looking at a page, a website, and if you'd like to follow along, just click on that web page and you will be able to follow along with me. I'll see if I can pin the comment. One moment. Okay, I'm not sure if that's pinned, but there it is. So kia ora whānau. So we're here to talk about legislation changes, ones that are currently up for public submissions, and I'd like to address it by first, so I've just posted that link in the comment section there. So if you want to go along and click on that link, you will come to a public submissions page on the official Parliament website in New Zealand. Now, currently there are 5 things. There are 5 amendments to different bills and legislation in New Zealand that are currently up for change. And if we want our voices to be heard on these changes, then we need to make a public submission about it. So currently those 5 things include an amendment to the Coroner's Amendment Bill, the Electoral Amendment Bill, an inquiry into the future of interregional passenger rail in New Zealand, self-contained motor vehicles legislation bill, and accessibility for New Zealanders, sorry. So there's a few things that are up for change at the moment, and whether you know or not, whether you're aware or not, these changes are going to affect us in some way or another. So it's really important that we read through these changes in legislation so that we can have our say if we don't agree with what these changes are going to be. So first I want to jump into the self-contained motor vehicles legislation bill, because this is the one that really stood out for me. And you know, obviously I have a personal connection with this. I live in my motor vehicle, as I know a lot of other people do also. Fortunately, it looks like the amendment to this bill will not affect me in particular, personally. However, it is going to affect a lot of people currently living in vehicles. So this was published on the Parliament website on the 1st of September, and the closing date for submissions is the 13th of October. So we've got a little bit of time here, and I'm just going to go into the changes of the legislation just to read them out to you and see what your thoughts are, guys, because it's got me a little bit concerned. So here it is. So the bill proposes the following measures. So there's 4 main points that it's wanting to make changes to, and I'll read out those 4 points to you just so you're all aware. So the changes to the self-contained motor vehicles legislation bill include a national requirement for freedom campers staying in a vehicle on land managed by a local authority to use a certified contained vehicle unless staying at a site designated by the local authority as suitable for freedom camping and motor vehicles that are not self-contained. So what I'm getting from this particular point in this paragraph is that there will be a requirement for all freedom campers to be certified self-contained. That is not a legal requirement at the moment, but it will become a legal requirement if this bill gets passed. The second point they've made is a regulatory system for certifying self-contained vehicles, with the Plumbers, Gas Fitters and Drain Layers Board providing regulatory oversight. So basically what this says to me is that they want to get a regulatory body up and running here in New Zealand, which basically will oversee the certification of our self-containment stickers and stuff that we've got on our vehicles, and it's going to work in with plumbers, gas fitters and drain layers to make sure that everything's up to par. So basically people are going to have to inspect your vehicle to make sure that it's up to par and that it will pass the self-containment certification legislation that will be implemented in New Zealand. The third change is a requirement for self-contained vehicles to have a fixed toilet. Now, this one really stood out for me because, as you guys know, there are a lot of people around New Zealand who travel in their vehicles and they have those camping toilets. So a lot of vans, camper vans, a lot of, the big transit vans, all sorts of vans, most of them have sort of a tuck away camping toilet that sort of slides under the seat or something away, so you can have a bit of space in the vehicle and you can pull it out when you need to use it. Now, the legislation change says that if this toilet is not fixed to the floor, you will not get a self-contained certification for it. So all the vehicles around New Zealand that currently have camping toilets in them that slide out for you to use are no longer legally going to be allowed at freedom campsites that are managed by a local authority. And that is huge. That is huge. We have so many tourists and stuff who pick up vans. I personally have a lot of friends living in vans, and you know, seeing this, it looks to me like, sorry, I'll read out this fourth point first. So the fourth point is strengthening the infringement regime and extending it to other Crown land. So they want to make stronger infringement rules so that they can sting us for these things if we don't have them. Now, I'm reading this going, you know, a lot of our people have been shifted into different situations of homelessness since this pandemic began. Obviously, a lot of people have lost their housing, they can't afford to pay their mortgages anymore, so they've had to shift into vehicles. And a lot of those in the freedom movement who are living in their vehicles are travelling around New Zealand currently, and they've all got these camping toilets in their vehicles. And I don't know, somehow I sort of feel that this is a bit of a push to further make it more difficult for homeless people to be living in their vehicles in a world that's hard enough as it is. Sorry, I'm just reading a comment here from Shona. I haven't read it all yet, but it says, honestly, honey, I don't fully understand the purpose of the taxpayer retaining an opposition party, if not to represent and voice the objections of we the people in Parliament. Well, yes, we do need those sort of things in place, don't we? Russell. So Russell has just made a point here that he's going to have a milk bottle that he can fix to the floor so that it'll be his toilet. I'm wondering what sort of ways there are going to be around these little loopholes. Janice here says, certified is only a push from NZMCA and Nash. It is an abolishment. So I am 100% aware that the NZMCA are backing these changes in motorhome legislation. I'm not sure why. I know they have a lot of people in their membership group that they tend to be older people who are driving retirement motorhomes. Can I say that without offending anybody? Retirement motorhomes. A lot of retirees get their motorhomes and they travel around and things like that. So I guess it won't affect people in the NZMCA that much, but those of us who are just, you know, trying to live our best lives, it's really going to affect us. So if you guys feel one way or another about this, please make sure you get to that Parliament website and make a submission. And have your voices heard. So the Coroner's Amendment Bill is another one that's up for public submissions. The Coroner's Amendment Bill was published on the 1st of September and submissions for that close on the 28th of September. So it's only a few days away. I think that's a week away. So if you want to make any submissions on this, you really need to get it in sooner rather than later. So there's 4 points here making changes to the bill, and I'll just read those out to you. The first point is, it says, establishing a new position of a coronial associate, which could undertake many of the more straightforward functions, powers and duties currently performed or exercised by coroners. I'm not too concerned about this point exactly, basically because we already do it in other aspects of different other careers, like let's say the health sector, for example. You know, we have nurses that do a lot of the jobs that the doctors don't have time for. We have healthcare assistants that do a whole lot of the jobs that nurses don't have time to do. So I guess this establishment of a new position of a coronial associate would, to me, that sounds like it would be something like a assistant in a healthcare situation, would be doing things to help the coroner maybe, so that they can focus their energies elsewhere. And the next point they make is making it clear that coroners could record a cause of death as unascertained natural causes if they considered that the death was from natural causes and no further investigation was required under the Act. So the change will allow coroners to record a cause of death as unascertained natural causes. So what does that say to us? I'm not 100% sure. I'm trying not to read too much into that, but there are a lot of things out there at the moment where, you know, people are dying and we just don't have got enough reason for it. And to me, this statement says that we want to be able to speed through recording a cause of death, so that we don't have to investigate it all that much. We can move on to the next, sorry, I don't know how to say it, body, the next body that coroners deal with, and the next cause of death that they have to ascertain. But that's what that paragraph says to me. Maybe it says something different to you guys, but yeah. The third point they make is enabling coroners to decide whether a coronial inquiry should include an inquest. So at the moment, it's not up to the coroners whether there is an inquest or not. And they want to make changes to this bill to make it a coroner decision. I'm not sure if coroners are doubling up in that sort of job somehow. You know, how do coroners know? That's a little bit worrying. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that one, but do drop your thoughts in there. And the fourth and final comment that's being made, or the point that's being made to change this legislation, is enabling coroners to issue written findings stating only the cause of death and not the circumstances. If they considered that there was no public interest in making findings about the broader circumstances. Now, this was a bit of a worrying one as well. Who gets to decide what's in the public interest and what isn't? What sort of procedures are undertaken to decide whether, the public should be allowed to know the cause of death or not? So enabling coroners to issue written findings stating only the cause of death and not the circumstances. I don't know about you guys, but I thought that was just a general part of a coroner's job. I thought that's what coroners had to do. Investigate the circumstances and come to a proper cause of death. But changes in this legislation will, anywho, you decide, up to you. Highly encourage you go to this Parliament website and check out these changes yourself, because there is a lot on here that we really need to read up about. The Electoral Amendment Bill is the next one that's up for public submissions. The Electoral Amendment Bill that opened on the 14th of September, submissions close on the 3rd of October. So that's about 2 weeks away. Now, submissions will be taken on the following 3 points. So, oh, hold on. No, that's not what is happening. Sorry, I'm just reading this one for the first time. I haven't actually read this one before. Okay, so I'll just read this part out to you here. It says the Electoral Amendment Bill would amend the Electoral Act 93 to support the provision of and participation in elections. Isn't this interesting? Sections 207 to 207p of the Act set out the general provisions relating to donations. The SOP would amend the definition of party donation in Section 207 of the Act. The proposed new definition specifies that a donation received by a person would be a party donation if there were reasonable grounds to believe that the donation was intended for the benefit of the party. The next point they make here is Section 207B of the Act requires a person receiving a candidate donation or party donation to transmit the donation to the candidate or the party secretary within 10 working days of receiving it. The SOP would insert a new offence for contravening Section 207B. So it looks like they're making an allowance for more infringements to be given out if this is not complied with. A person who failed without reasonable excuse to comply with Section 207B would commit an offence and be liable on conviction of a fine up to $40,000. Oh my goodness. So anybody who is currently, there's been a lot of new people stepping up for council and elections at the moment. So you guys should really, really get onto this and have a look through this. And I'm sure it will mean a lot more to you than someone in my position, but it does have an aspect of worrying to it as well. So any public submissions are welcome on that up until the 3rd of October. So the next one we've got here on the Parliament website, and again, for those who've just joined us, there is a comment that I've put in the comment section that has the website that I'm looking at right now that's open for public submissions. So jump on that website if you want to see what I'm looking at, and you'll be able to see all the legislation that's currently open for public submissions. Now, the inquiry into the future of interregional passenger rail in New Zealand. Now, this is another one that I haven't yet read, but I am interested. Let's see what it says. So it says, Terms of reference: investigating possibilities and viability of passenger rail in underserved communities, those with prior rail links that have been disestablished and those currently advocating for improved rail links. So it looks like they're wanting to do some investigation into, because we've had a lot of rails are closed around New Zealand. I'm here in Gisborne at the moment, and I know the Gisborne to Napier rail has been closed for a number of years. They were just doing freight on it for a while, but now with the cost of diesel and everything going up, I think there's going to be more of a call for public transport by way of train. So I guess it's not 100% a bad thing, this first point, investigating possibilities and viability. That sounds like a good thing to me. The next point is gaining insights into viability of passenger rail sitting alongside KiwiRail's freight network. So that sounds like another good thing to me. However, what else does this mean? That, sometimes they tend to word things that it doesn't sound as bad as it's meant to. There are little things hidden in the terms and conditions, and it does make me wonder. The next point they've made, evaluating existing interregional passenger rails, such as the Capital Connection, and how these services work between local and regional councils and central government. Local and regional councils and central government. Those are the words that stood out to me. As most of you must be aware, they are currently, I believe they're currently working towards getting rid of local councils and making it all a central government. So I'm not sure how that would work in future, but cool, there's that point. The next point is gaining insights into the integration of regional rail into existing local public transport networks. Again, on the surface, that sounds like a good thing to me. The next thing, investing the climate and emissions reductions possibilities of passenger rail and how this links to VKT, which is vehicle kilometres travelled. Reduction targets in the emissions reduction plan and including electrification between regions. Electrification between regions. So that sounds, does that sound to you like they're trying to get electric trains up and running here in New Zealand? That says to me, yeah, that says to me that they'll be looking at electric train systems. And well, is that because we've shut down Marsden Point? Fuel is very expensive. Oh, and also with the, with all the potholes around New Zealand at the moment, I know everyone's seen them. You go for a drive and you feel like you need a bloody wheel alignment every time you go for a drive. It's terrible, the potholes, because of the bitumen that we are now importing as of 2 years ago is just not of very good quality at all. So I guess, are they wanting to get less cars on the road so that they... You know what? I don't even know. You guys read into it how you will. I'm reading it out exactly as it's written on this Parliament site. It's up for debate. And the final point that they've made is investigating potential rail expansions and investments on specific areas such as Tauranga, following a recent report on the reintroduction of passenger rail, and the Lower North Island, following a business case funded at Budget 2021. So I'm just reading these things for the first time, and this particular amendment to this bill doesn't actually sound that bad to me on the surface. If you guys have picked up on something different in there, please let me know in the comments section. I'll be very interested to hear your thoughts. The final bill that's currently up for amendment is the Accessibility for New Zealanders bill. And that is the fifth and final one. Now, this opened on the 24th of August and is actually open for a wee while. It's open, it doesn't close until the 7th of November. So there's plenty of time to get stuff in here if you want to make a public submission. So the bill, the changes to the bill would do three main things. So the first of which, it would establish an accessibility committee. The committee would have up to 10 members, the majority of whom would be disabled. This committee would provide advice and make recommendations about accessibility to the Minister for Disability Issues. It would represent the voices of disabled people, tangata whaikaha, and their families or whānau and others in accessibility needs. Don't we already have a Health and Disability Commissioner and Commission? I thought that was already in place. Do we not have a committee already that advocates for the rights of the disabled? I'm just spitting out of my mouth right now, but that particular point doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because I feel like we've already got that. Is the current thing not working? Is it going to be replaced? What are they wanting to do here? I'm not sure. The next thing that they plan to change would be it says it would enhance accountability and coordination across the public service and government to progress accessibility issues. It would do this by creating clear responsibilities for the Minister of Disability Issues, the Chief Executive of Whaikaha, Ministry of Disabled People, and the Accessibility Committee. Okay, so it said right there, we already have an accessibility committee. It would enhance accountability and coordination across the public service and government. Do we not already have accountability in these sectors? What the hell is going on? Am I reading this wrong? It sounds like we're back in the 70s or something, just at the beginning of dealing with accessibility issues in New Zealand. They've also made the point that it would build knowledge and awareness about the importance of addressing accessibility barriers. Are people not already aware of the importance of accessibility for our disabled whānau? Like, what? I'm really confused by this one, guys. It would build knowledge and awareness about the importance of addressing accessibility barriers. Addressing accessibility barriers is already important. We already have a Health and Disability Commission that deals with that, don't we? Am I missing something here? Am I missing something? The amendment to this bill doesn't look like it changes anything. So let me read this over again. Maybe I'm missing something really simple here. Can you guys hear something that I'm not hearing? Let me read these 3 points again. So the changes to the bill would establish an accessibility committee. The committee would have up to 10 members, the majority of whom would be disabled. I'm sorry, I just thought this was already done. I thought we already had this. The committee would provide advice and make recommendations about accessibility to the Minister for Disability Issues. Now, I've never heard about a Minister for Disability Issues. Is that a new position? A Minister for Disability Issues? I'm not sure, but I'm 100% sure that we already have a minister in a committee that deals with this. This would represent the voices of disabled people, tangata whaikaha, and their families or whānau and others with accessibility needs. It would enhance accountability and coordination across the public service and government to progress accessibility issues. Why are places not really already being held accountable? I thought places were being held accountable. And coordination across the public service. Do we not already have coordination across public services for disabled people? What? Okay, I can feel myself, I'm probably going to read this 16 times over and it's still not going to make any more sense to me. Again, guys, if I'm missing something really simple here, please point it out to me. I acknowledge that I am not perfect. I do not know everything. But it just doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, so that was the 5th and final one that's currently up for public submissions. Again, guys, there is a link in the comments there that has the website that you can go directly to. It's www.parliament.nz/something, and you click on make a submission and you can view all the things that are currently up for submission. So again, if you didn't hear at the beginning of this live, the current ones up for submission at the moment are the Coroner's Amendment Bill, which we read through, and that would give coroners the right to list a cause of death without investigating circumstances if they decide that it's not in public interest. Again, I would really like to know how they decide whether it's in public interest or not. There's the Electoral Amendment Bill is the second one. And the Electric Amendment Bill, I believe people who are running for council at the moment really need to read up on this one because it has a lot of stuff about how you handle the donations that are coming in for your candidacy. Is that a word? I don't know. And then there's the inquiry into the future of interregional passenger rail in New Zealand, which to me on the surface looks really good. It looks like they want to investigate electric rail, passenger rail within New Zealand and get some not non-existent lines, but disabled lines up and running again, which I think sounds like a good thing. The self-contained motor vehicles legislation bill, which I read out first, and that was one that kind of really stood out to me with a lot of problems. The main one being it would provide a regulatory body in New Zealand that would oversee the self-containment certification of vehicles by way of inspection, and it would mean that anyone who has a non-fixed toilet, like a camping toilet that slides out in their vehicle to use, if it's not fixed to the floor, as in it's not immovable, then you are not going to get self-containment certification, which is going to be huge. That's a big problem for me. Well, not for me personally. I'm fine in the bus, but for a lot of friends I know who live in their vehicles, that's going to be terrible. And the fifth and final one that's up for submissions at the moment is the Accessibility for New Zealanders bill, and that's the one that we just talked about the committee that they want to sort out and what was it? Create a better structure in New Zealand between different public services for our disabled, which I honestly thought we already had. And if we don't already have that, why? Why? I don't know. Anyway, I'm just going to go to the comments section now, guys, and just see what your thoughts are. Right. Okay. Janae, self-containment changes is absolutely ludicrous. Yes, I agree, darling. Absolutely. Let's see what else we've got. Okay, Russell, Saki, I was homeless living in a van and copped $600 worth of fines. It really affected my mental health. That's horrible, mate. I mean, people living in their vehicles, they're not exactly well off. They're not living in their vehicles because they're well off. A lot of them are living in their vehicles because they're struggling. I live in my vehicle by choice, but I do know the majority of people out there, they just can't afford housing. And so sticking them with extra fines and everything, that's really not helping a situation. Eggy Campbell, yeah, it's the homeless is what I'm worried about. Yep, they're putting in the boot, not okay. I 100% agree. We need more support for our homeless community, not less. We don't need to punish them more. We need to support them. Russell, okay, NZMCA want to avoid installing toilets and showers at their campgrounds. Okay, so we discussed how NZMCA is currently backing the changes to the motorhome legislation. I haven't seen this point made in black and white, but I would understand it. Yeah, NZMCA don't want to be putting any more toilet and shower blocks at their campgrounds. Okay, that makes sense. Jane, NZMCA locked members out of parks they paid to use during lockdowns. They're money grabbing old very unkind buggers. Yes, that was horrible, wasn't it? So I don't know if you found out aware at home, but when the pandemic hit, the New Zealand Motorhome Association, which is the biggest motorhome group in New Zealand that you can join to get really good discounts on places to stay. They have their own campgrounds and things that just cost a few dollars a night that you can stay at. They give discounts on crossing the ferry, on places like Noel Leeming's, Harvey Norman, I think. Lots of different places they give you discounts. Now, during the pandemic, the NZMCA decided that if you weren't vaccinated, you were not allowed to stay at their campsites, regardless of whether you were a paid member or not. And a lot of people had a lot of trouble getting refunds on their membership for the MCA. It was a real hassle. I honestly can't believe they did that. Anyway, Harry, when tyranny becomes law, resistance is our duty. Amen, brother. Okay, Janice, we own a bus and only have cassette toilet. This gripes me. There are a lot of expensive motorhomes with cassettes and will no longer be able to use any facilities and is affecting these members. NZMCA also locked all members out of parks that did not get vaccinated. This issue is huge. Janice, if you have a cassette toilet, I believe you'll be just fine. I think it's just the fact that it needs to be a fixed toilet now, so we can't use those movable camping toilets. Now, if you've got a cassette toilet, I'm assuming that your toilet is fixed in your vehicle. You can't move it, and your cassette just slides in and out. Those ones, I assume, will be absolutely fine. Jane, whatever happened to Craig's bill? Sorry, Jane, I don't know what Craig's bill is. Okay, Jane, NZ coroners have to be lawyers first, so it says all you need to know. I didn't know that. So coroners have to actually be lawyers, get a degree and pass the bar to be a lawyer or whatever before they can actually be a coroner. That's very interesting. The plot thickens. Absolutely, Tracy. Red flags, red flags. Okay, Julie, the coroners are already stating natural causes. My husband died 3 weeks ago. Oh, Julie, it states on it pulmonary embolism, but died from natural causes. How is a pulmonary embolism natural? Julie, first off, I'm just absolutely devastated to hear about your husband. I'm so sorry to hear about that. Very sorry for your loss. Okay, so they'll state pulmonary embolism and natural causes. Well, so a pulmonary embolism is when a blood clot travels from somewhere in your body, anywhere in your body, and gets to your lung. I believe your lung, I think, and it clots up and basically, yeah, it's not good. You die. You pass away if you don't get really, really good care. Correct me if I'm wrong, Julian, and I don't mean any offence if I have got it wrong. But yeah, I don't know. I think a pulmonary embolism can occur naturally. I'm not 100% sure on that, but those are my thoughts, my friend. Okay, Janice, JC has become very involved in the coroners and funeral sides. Add it to her list of control. Oh, control is everything. JJ, did you notice that it was published the day after Rory's inquest? See, now I knew you guys would make some really good points in the comments section. No, I did not notice that. However, I have been following Rory's inquest and it has definitely been an eye-opener. I did not make the connection between the day the legislation was put up for amendment, but that is a connection to be very aware of. I don't know if you guys at home are aware, but if you look it up, we've had a few changes recently to legislation. Sorry, dogs in the background being idiots. Sorry, one moment. Uno momento. Hey, Rory, could you just make sure the dogs stay outside? They're not allowed in here. I'm just at a friend's house, guys, using their Wi-Fi because I'm not in a place that has very good reception right now. And dogs are not allowed in the home, so outside. Anyway, oh yes, so the notice was published the day after Rory's inquest. So I was just about, because that reminds me of the legislation that was changed the day before the 2nd of March when all the police came down to Parliament. I'm not sure if you whānau at home are aware, but you can look it up on the Parliament website. The legislation surrounding pepper spray was changed on the 1st of March. Isn't that interesting? And then they came at us with it on the 2nd of March. So the legislation changes regarding pepper spray. Previous legislation said that they were not allowed to use pepper spray in a crowded situation and they had to provide aftercare. Now, the change meant they were allowed to use it in a crowded situation, like Camp Freedom, and they did not have to provide any aftercare. So that meant they could just spray people and leave them without any medical help. Hence, everybody running around with all the milk and everything. And I don't blame them. I felt the pepper spray myself and the milk works, promise you. Okay. Janice, sister-in-law passed during COVID and was listed as natural cause. She died of pneumonia and would not give us medical records. Wow. To be honest, Janice, no disrespect to your sister-in-law passing, but I'm surprised they didn't put down that she died of COVID. My condolences, 100%, my friend. I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, Jane, check the Taxpayer Union Guide to Local Body Voting. Okay, I have not looked that up. It sounds like there might be something interesting in there. Emma, what about the fact that they will control the only affordable transport around the country? Hey now we're digging deeper. That's a very good point. So if they got rail up and running again, it would be another mode of transportation that would ideally be affordable to everyday New Zealanders, and I can imagine cheaper than driving your car to destinations. And yes, it will be controlled by the government as per usual. Asha, the reason they want passenger rail is because they don't want us to have our own cars. That's interesting. Why do you think they don't want us to have cars? I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts about that one. I mean, they're already heading that direction with the price of fuel, but I thought that was because of the big push towards electric vehicles. If they're pushing so many electric vehicles right now, and the government are even offering to subsidise these vehicles, I'm not sure how that works with getting people off the road. Maybe they want to do less repairs on the road now that they've got crap bitumen to work with. Who knows? Emma, a camera in each carriage and they know where everyone is travelling to, from and with. Good point. Very interesting. What else have we got here? Okay, Asha, just look at how China's cities and social credit system works. It'll be like that, but on a smaller scale and most likely using carbon credits as payment for things. Okay, I don't want to sound like the dumbest person in the world or in the room or in this live stream, but is China already working on a social credit system? I wasn't aware of that. I mean, I'm sure most of you guys who know me know that I live under a rock half the time, and sometimes I need to be told things because I'm just not aware. China's cities and social credit system works. I'd love to know more about the social credit system in China, you guys. It sounds very interesting. Sandy, understand your confusion, Zeb, about these disability points. They don't make sense to me either. Yeah, I didn't want to spend too much longer on those because I could just feel myself just going over and over, round in circles, because it just wasn't making any more sense to me than the first time I read it, unfortunately. Alma, what does the bill refer to? Is it the Pandemic Acts that were transferred into New Zealand policy to dismantle the Pandemic Acts? So are they dealing with the acts that are hidden under the health and safety? I'm not 100% sure on that, sorry, Alma. I don't see any links to the pandemic on the surface other than that motorhome legislation. I'm sure you guys saw links in that too. Janine, New Zealand government legislation is predictive AI. New Zealand government are the first to implement the models. In 2020, submissions are handled by online working groups. The narcissist MP pops in and out of the online Zoom meeting and smirks, acts, hears you out. AI calls them human agents. The public submissions are in the thousands. Depending who you are, you can be heard for 5-10 minutes. Nothing you say or do will change the algorithms. New Zealand legislation is machine learning. Machine learning AI. It seems to have cut off the rest of your comment there, but that's quite interesting too, Janine. Thank you for that. Gina, sounds like these are moves to dismantle current structures and resurrect with policies, structures that may have hidden bits embedded. That's what I'm really concerned about, Gina, and I'm glad I'm not the only one who has that concern. They have, it's just the history of other bills that they've sort of slipped under the radar that has me really worried about what sort of hidden costs there might be in these amendments. And yeah, it is a definite concern. Okay. Anya, you do realise international homeless are thrown in the trash. We're not voting for National. We're not voting for Labour. Sandy, yes, there's a housing crisis, so it seems punishing and making life more difficult for people in vehicles. Why? Yeah, I don't understand why we want to make life more difficult for these people. What we need is an outreach service to go and speak with these people and provide a holistic approach to securing them with things they need. If things they need include a fixed toilet, well, maybe we can get a committee up and running for that. I really feel for these people. Right. Portaloo Phil, awesome topic, Zeb, but I'm not too worried about the Coroner Act changes. Good to know. Good to know. What else have we got here? Oh, Gina, I see you've put a link down here to Health and Disability Services. Yeah, so that's what I was talking about. I feel like we already have a committee in an organisation that's being paid to what, guys? What are they being paid to do? Being paid to assess situations that arise for our disabled whānau, to make accessibility easier for them. So I feel like this organisation is already addressing those concerns. So why do we have a need for a completely different organisation? I've got no idea. Willie, a lot of them are judges before they become coroners. I know a couple, the first Māori coroners. Wow, so not only do coroners have to be lawyers first, but some, they don't have to be judges, is that what you're saying? Just some of them are? I have been judges as well. That's really interesting. So they must know a lot about the law and legislation. Well, I would hope so anyway. Chloe, electric vehicles are still unaffordable. That's 100% correct. And let's not even start on how terrible they are for the environment and how we're being greenwashed to believe that they are going to save us so much in, what is it, emissions or whatever. If you go and Google those sites that they're digging up to make these batteries, and Google how they're getting rid of these batteries, because the batteries don't last forever. They currently don't have a good enough system in place to get rid of these batteries in a way that is sustainable. So there's that. All right, what else have we got? Julie, China already has a social credit system and has for a long time. I need to look into this more, you guys. This is the first I'm hearing about China having a social credit system. To be honest, I don't look a lot further outside of New Zealand, but yeah, that's definitely something I need to read up about. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah. Okay, and we'll come to the end of the comments. So, hey, thanks guys for joining me today. Honestly, I really encourage you guys to get onto that public legislation website at parliament.nz. Just check in the comment section there, and you will find it, the link there. That's if you're watching me on Facebook or YouTube, it will be in the comments section. If you're watching me on another platform, you might have to Google it yourself. But anyway, have a great day. Please make a public submission, have your opinion heard, and let's work towards getting New Zealand back, guys. Love you all. Have a great night. Pō Mārie.